The Wrestling Realm presents Wrestling for the Culture, where we highlight pro wrestlers and pro wrestling personalities of color. Here's your host, Brian H. Waters. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this episode of Wrestling for the Culture. I am your host, Brian H. Waters, one half of the Wrestling Realm. Shout out to my brother, the real Dwayne Allen. And I am excited because on this episode of Wrestling for the Culture, we are bringing in somebody who does it all. She has her own podcast. She is a commentator, announcer, and a writer and a show host. And that is the one and only Miss Queen Stephanie Hardy. Steph, how you feeling today?
I'm doing good. I am doing fantastic on this Martin Luther King Day. And I'm
Amen.
really honored that you asked me, to be on here. And I've seen all of your work and just admired you, from afar for so long. So it's really great to actually be here.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It's the best thing about social media and the wrestling community is a lot of times you could just, you get online and you see people that look like you and have similar backgrounds in the same field. And then you're like, well, let me check out their content. And one of the things is like there's been plenty of times I've been sitting here on a Sunday listening to your podcast while playing a game, just relaxing. And I've always like love how you break down wrestling. If you're not interviewing somebody, if you're just doing your regular show, just breaking down and not complaining. A lot of it's easy to just get on the show and complain and whatnot. And to be honest with you, it's one of those things that's like, all right, I tried to help people, I try to support next, but I definitely didn't get that vibes. When did you first fall in love with wrestling?
Well, I appreciate that compliment. First of all, yeah, thank you. I try not to complain a whole lot, but I'll get into that a little bit more later.
Mm-hmm.
I fell in love with wrestling at the age of 4. I started watching it with my dad. He and I would watch it, and he was the type of fan that on Mondays he would tape WCW and WWF at the time, back to back because he would have to work and he wouldn't be able to watch it live. So he would tape them and then come back and watch them like either at home or at my grandma's house. And so he would tape them and stuff. And so I remember walking in and watching him watch wrestling, and I asked him, who these people were and stuff. And he would tell me, who everybody was, who Goldberg was, who Hollywood Hulk Hogan was, the Nitro
Mm-hmm.
girls, like that's who I fell in love with at that time. And I remember whenever the Nitro girls would come on TV, I would just start dancing with them in front of the television.
Uh,
And so basically, I just never really stopped after that point. Wrestling was always there. And then he actually started watching wrestling because of my grandmother. So it's
wow.
kind of a generational thing. And
Mm-hmm.
then so it just always stuck with me, and I've just loved it ever since. Like I just never really let it go.
So it sounds like me, you're an attitude era baby.
Yes.
Attitude era kid, whatever. Let me ask you this. How do you feel when you hear these ruthless aggression kids come out and say the attitude era was overrated or problematic?
See, here's the thing. Um, I'm not entirely mad about them saying it because
Okay.
if you were to go back as an adult, and look at some of the stuff that they were doing, of course it's wild and it's crazy, and some of it you can laugh at, a lot of the time.
Hmm.
Because the 90s was a wild time, and when you go back and see certain things even in pop culture, it was a really wild time. But then to look at it now with more of, a holistic perspective and looking at it from an understanding of other people's cultures and also from the perspective of being a woman and stuff like that. Some of that stuff really wasn't exactly the best, you know, it didn't really reflect the best of what, humanity could be at the time.
Hmm.
And I know even the ruthless aggression era, there are certain things that doesn't really like reflect the best of humanity at the time either. It was almost like it was like you had humanity over here and then you had wrestling over here, and it was its own different thing.
Hmm.
But at the same time, if any person were to ever come up to me who were raised, in the ruthless aggression era, and if they said that, I wouldn't be angry with them for it either because they're not entirely wrong. But then there's certain parts of the Attitude Era that triggered the ruthless aggression era as well. So it all, is an evolutionary period, and I
Mhm.
won't necessarily like look down on either one.
Mhm.
But I just feel like all of the eras are all just, telling of where the world is now. And yeah, it's crazy when you look back on some of those things. I know that was a pretty long answer, but yeah,
No,
that's just
no, so you hit it right on the head, right? When you do look back, you look at it does tell you where the world was, right?
mhm,
I think back to WrestleMania 7. It was supposed to be in the Los Angeles Coliseum.
mhm,
The rumor storyline is that they changed it to an inside venue because of the threat of a terrorist attack. And then you think
mhm.
back when WWE did the risk of putting Sergeant Slaughter as a turncoat on America because America was at war. Now, my cousin believes that they didn't sell enough tickets, so they made that up to say, "Hey, we didn't sell enough tickets for WrestleMania, so we're not gonna have it inside. Outside, we're gonna go inside." That's his theory because he said it wouldn't make sense, right? But
Mhm.
you think about the war, and then you have Hulk Hogan winning. You look at the logo; it's the red, white, and blue, kind of like when the Patriots won the Super Bowl. The same thing. So you that's a good point. I understand when people say it's problematic. It's when the fans get say it's overrated because like they always talk about the work rate, and I'm like, we didn't care. We wanted to see the storyline. We didn't care about
Yeah,
how many 5-star matches. One thing I did like about it though was when somebody hit their finisher, the match was over.
right. Yeah, that is kind of, there was a little bit of finality to hitting, a finisher, and it would be over at that point.
Hmm.
And in terms of it being overrated, I would say I mean, that's kind of hard to say because it's like you do have your great matches that was in the Attitude Era, but then at the same time, the stories were very grandiose in nature.
Hmm.
So I wouldn't necessarily say that it was overrated. I feel like it's pretty rated for the time it was in. Like I
Yeah.
won't say it's overrated though.
Yeah. Now, when did you go to your first show?
Whew. I went to my first show I think around the early 2000s.
Okay.
Yeah, it was the early 2000s, and my first show was a SmackDown because I remember the old setup and everything where they had like the silver rings with the Titantron in the back, and it had the old SmackDown logo. Like
Hmm.
that was my very first event, and I can't exactly remember all that happened
Hmm.
with it because it was so long ago. But yeah, I remember that was my first one, and I was just really excited to go because I had seen it on television so many times. But when my dad finally took me, I just remember just feeling like really pumped to be amongst the people and see all the signs and everything. It was cool.
Wow, that's amazing. Now, as you got older, when did you decide like you wanted to be in a business?
That's a funny story because I never thought that I would ever be in the business. Like
Mhm,
I only just started being in the business just 2 years ago.
mhm,
Like when I grew up and stuff, it's like I was involved in so many different things like in high school and in middle school and in college, like that was involved with music and singing and stuff. I was a choir girl. And wrestling was just something that I just so happened to love, in the midst of everything else I was involved in academically.
mhm.
And I went to school for a completely different, subject for music. So I got my degree in that. But at the same time, I never thought that I would be in the business, like ever. Like sometimes I would think about it and think about how cool it would be. But as far as it being like a serious thing, I never thought about doing it until 2000, into not 2000, 2020, 2020, blah, I'm
Okay.
sorry. Yeah, until 2020. And that was when I started my podcast. I started the Hardy Wrestling Podcast a little bit after the Royal Rumble that year. And it was before the pandemic. And I just remember starting it because I really didn't have anywhere to really put my wrestling thoughts anymore because I was with a wrestling group on Facebook, but
Mhm.
then I took a break from it. And
Oh,
then
I know
after I
how that
took a
is.
break from it, I came back and I was an administrator of this page, but then I got taken off of the administrator thing and it was just a whole stupid situation. And I left. So I was just like, so I don't have anywhere to put my wrestling thoughts. So I decided to start a podcast because me and this group had talked about starting a podcast before, but we never did. So I was just like, well, if it's just going to be me, then it's just going to be me. It's like I tried to ask so many different friends who I knew loved wrestling, if they wanted to do it with me and they didn't have time or they just didn't necessarily want to do it because it didn't make them comfortable. And I just said, okay, well, I'm just going to do it for myself. And I did it. And it's been pretty great ever since. Like I just took it and just started rolling with it. And then I just started making friends and making connections with people who saw what I was doing. And I actually started writing down things I would want to do,
Mhm.
like commentary or, anything else. And a lot of opportunities just started popping up, from other people who would tell me about, certain events that were going on here in Alabama, and stuff. And that's how I got involved with the Belladonna Division and then later on with Women's Wrestling Talk.
Man, that is amazing. Because the thing is, a lot of people don't understand. It can be hard doing a podcast by yourself because you're literally sitting in a room or wherever and just talking. And you put out something, you want to, you hope, somebody likes it. Obviously, everybody wants to, we could all say, oh, I do this because I'm passionate about it and whatnot. But you want people to listen. You want people to check it out. Um, so, I commend you because I know how hard it is. When the wrestling realm started, we was rolling. The first in 2011 and 12, 13, we had to slow down for school. 14, 15, 16, 17, it was like hit or miss because of moving and life got in the way. And like 18, we started, but then that's when I started my shows. And I was like, all right, I'm gonna just do it. Dwayne was like, you got my blessing, go for it. He would come on, and then now we're able to find a way to get back consistent. But you're doing it by yourself. I know how hard that is. So I give you your flowers right now because it's hard, but you making it work, and you've built a brand. Shout out to make sure y'all buy merch. We're gonna put the link in the bios and everything so people can support. But
Yes. Thank you.
yeah, absolutely. It's hard, but you're building a brand. So that's the reason why, like I said, just coming across social media, I've seen your work and checked that out. And I don't know if you can see on my Spotify if I'm obvious for obvious reasons. Spotify is my go-to, but you can see I'm following.
Aw, thank
So,
you.
so look, the last one was December 18th. So when we get another episode.
Well, I basically had to slow down because I had family stuff going on.
Hmm.
And because it was also the holidays too. So
Yeah,
I just decided to just sort of, take a chill for a minute and then just relax for a while.
that's smart.
And take care of myself and deal
Hmm.
with my family stuff. And then basically my new episode is actually coming out this week.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm
Good
starting
timing.
season 4
Mhm.
this week because the thing is like I was struggling with when to start back again because it felt like wrestling just sort of started popping off on social media and everything else at the very beginning of the year. Like at the very beginning, everything just started boom, 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 boom
Yeah,
happening.
well, yeah,
And I
after
was
that
just
New Year's
like,
Eve tweet.
uh so I was struggling, but I just decided to sort of take my time and
Mhm.
just, come back when I had time to do it because I was also preparing for this last Belladonna Division show that we just had this past Saturday, where we crowned our first ever Forbidden Elegance champion, Cassandra Golden, and I had to
Yes.
prepare for that. And so it was just I just needed to just space some stuff out. But my new episode is coming out this weekend.
Awesome. Well, can't wait, obviously. Also, for those who do not know, if you make sure when you go in there, you give a 5-star rating, not one, not two, not three, but not four, but five. That way it can, continue to climb in the charts, whether it's Spotify, iTunes, or what have you. We want to make sure we support uh the queen herself. So now talk about Belladonna, the Belladonna division. How did the opportunity, like, you like you said, you just found yourself into the business, but like how did that all start? How did it come about? What led you to pursue this opportunity?
Well, basically, there is this woman who's also in the business in Arizona. Her name is Miranda Morales. She basically is, I believe, the co-founder of the chairshotmedia.com along with
Mm.
Greg DeMarco, and shout out to them
I
because I'm
know
on their
Greg.
network. Um, I connected with her because, like I said, she saw a lot of the posts that I was making on Instagram, and we connected immediately. And she was friends with Casey Dillon, who is a wrestler and a referee.
Hmm.
And she let me know that she was looking for somebody to be on commentary. And that basically Casey is originally from Gaston, Alabama. And
Okay.
so she was putting together like this division, which was an offset of another wrestling division that was called Victory Championship Wrestling, but it's now called Spartan Wrestling in Gadsden. So this is an all female promotion.
Hmm.
And I was just like, okay, well, this is an all female promotion. This is owned by a woman, and actually by two women. Veronica Fairchild is also an owner of it as well. And I was just like, you know what, maybe I could try it. And so I dropped in Casey's DMs and was like, hey, I live in Birmingham. Gaston is like 2 hours away from us. So I was just like, okay, so I live in Birmingham, and I am a podcaster, and I know I don't have that much experience, with commentary itself, but I do talk about wrestling on a weekly or bi-weekly basis. So, if you want to check something out, and consider me, then, please do. And I sent her my link to my stuff and everything, and she listened to the intro to my podcast, not even a whole episode. Like this scared me when she told me this. I was like, excuse me, you only listen to the intro? What? She listened to the intro, which is about like maybe 45 seconds at the most, and she wanted me immediately. And I was
Hmm.
like, oh my gosh, yay. So I did whatever I could to prepare and research the girls who are a part of the show, find them, following them on social media, asking them for whatever information they could give me on themselves, and I
Hmm.
wrote it down in a notebook, bought a like smaller notebook to put that in from my bigger notebook so I could carry it, and just did it. And I have a great partner in the funeral director, Scott Resner. He is my commentary bestie. He is like amazing. He was play by play commentary, and I'm color.
Hmm.
So it was amazing. Like my the first show that we did was just so amazing to do. Like it was my first independent show that I'd ever been to in my whole life.
Oh wow.
So not only it was my first time commentating, it was my first independent show ever. And it was just the most amazing experience. Like it was so thrilling. Like I was just so excited to be able to do whatever I could to make these girls look good. And I love women's wrestling. I love wrestling as a whole, but I
Hmm.
definitely love women's wrestling. So to be a part of it in that way was such an honor. And then just to, be back there and work with the girls and talk about, anything that they've done in like the past couple of months in order to put that in as a part of the show, that
Hmm.
was amazing too. Because these women they're like superheroes. So, they're talking to me who was a fan, and now I'm a host and a commentary person, even though I'm brand new. Like that was just amazing for me. Like I loved it so much. So that's kind of how I got involved with it. Now we had our we had our second show, which had Jazz in the car on the card during her retirement tour,
Hmm.
and the likes of the Woad. And then it also had Amber Rodriguez on the show, and Shalance Royale, who's been on AEW, on the show, and Jordan Grace, like from Impact. Like those were the type of people that we're getting for our shows, and it's just so amazing. And then we had our third show where we had the tournament to find out who was going to be our first ever Forbidden Elegance champion, who turned out to be the golden one, Cassandra Golden, who worked so hard. And she wrestled in 4 matches, and we did not stop until we had a winner, and she was it. And that was really cool. So, and then we dedicated the tournament to Daphne, who
Hmm.
was a huge part of Casey and Veronica's lives because she was a part of the Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame here in Alabama. And a lot of people may not know that because, well, we're Alabama and stuff, but that's a whole nother subject. And they were really honored to dedicate that to her because she was such a good friend to them. And even housing some of the wrestlers, when they were finding their way. So it was just it's a beautiful thing to be a part of, to actually be in the business. You get to watch these people grow and become who they're set to become, and you're a part of it. And it's just so beautiful.
Yeah, I always said that one of the things I was taught, shout out to my boy Blake, well, known as Blizz. He does photography and he's actually featured on the AEW album that's coming out. But he was a long time booker. And when we first met, was when I got into the business in 2011, 2012. I was doing backstage social media and some backstage commentary with Real Championship Wrestling, a former company here in Baltimore. And one of the first things he told me is that in the indies, the goal is to see your kids fly. You shouldn't want
Hmm.
to hold them back with your promotion and whatnot. It's like when you watch Heels, right? And if I don't know if you've seen the show,
Yeah,
um,
I've seen certain episodes of it.
yeah, and it seems like the older brother, I can't remember the names. It seems like the older brother wants to hold the younger brother back and keep him a part of the promotion. And you got the other
Hmm.
guy saying, no, you need to go to New York, which we know he's talking about WWE. You know what I mean? And that's the thing. Like when you look at it, I was told immediately, you want to see these people fly. When I worked with him at WSU Wrestling back in 2017, I think it was 16, 17. And, that was when a young Jordan Grace was coming up and seeing her like go through the women's division. She just came up short to the legend herself, Mercedes Martinez, for the
Hmm.
WSU championship. But in that locker room, Mercedes Martinez, Deanna Perrazzo, Mia Yim, Allie, Jordan Grace, Renee Michelle. Who else was there? Britt Baker, Kiara Hogan, and so many countless others. And then like legends, including um, Missy Sampson, Amy Lee, I can't, Annie Social, and Kimberly. And Leva Bates. All these people, and we saw them grow. You know, this is when Britt Baker was, starting out. She was still in dental school. Now
Hmm.
she's the complete doctor. You know, Kiera Hogan won her first championship there, the WSU Spirit Championship. She would later on become the Impact Tag Team Champions. So this is the best part is seeing people grow, and they're gonna be saying the same thing about you. Should you decide, like, you know what, you get that call, whether it's AEW, WWE, they'll be like, well, remember when she was here broadcasting
Yeah.
with us, and I think it's a beautiful thing, it is one of the reasons why I love this sport. And listen to you talk, I mean, and hear you talk about all the girls that's on your roster. It just brought back memories to when we was doing WSU, and you could hear the passion and inflection in your voice on how much you love this.
Yes, I really do. And it's so funny. A lot of the people that you mentioned, were on our show. Like Renee
Hmm.
Michelle was in the tournament. And I saw Renee Michelle actually go up against Jordan Grace in the first round of our tournament. And it was
Hmm.
such a good match. I'm telling you, like, it was so amazing and everybody was really into it and everything. Like, I love, watching people like that grow. And then not even just seeing them grow, just the fact that you were back there with these people that you may have seen, even on television. Like, I think one of the coolest parts about being a part of the business, it just feels like this thing that you felt like was sort of like far from you. It's like it's behind the television.
Yep.
It's almost like it's becoming a part of your life, and there's no wall anymore. Like, there's just no glass wall anymore. It's you and them, and it's real. And it's so scary to think about sometimes. Like, you ever just sit down and mentally put it together, and even seeing people, like Amber Rodriguez on NXT, and like Jordan Grace on television, and even like Mickey James, who I actually got to interview last year with Women's Wrestling Talk during Empower Weekend. Like,
Hmm.
seeing her on television and making history in the way that she's doing now, being the Impact Knockouts champion and participating in the Royal Rumble. Like, when you sit down and really think about it and think about how you go about your day to day, every day, like an ordinary person, you're just like, huh? This is
Yeah.
happening to me? Me?
Yeah.
What? It's crazy, but it's wonderful. I love
Yeah.
it so much.
Yeah, it's amazing. Now let's talk women's wrestling talk. How did you become a part of that? Because like, I've been obviously keeping up and having it on Fight TV. So I've been able to watch and shout out to all the ladies over there doing their thing. How did this opportunity come about for you?
Yeah, okay. So, um I love TK Trinidad. Let me just say that.
Mhm.
I love her.
Amazing.
I absolutely love her. And I believe it was towards the middle part, or if not the beginning part of last year, they were posting stuff about looking to expand their team. And a part of me, felt like, well, I had heard about them, from afar, and heard about TK and Emily May from afar and stuff, because I used to watch them on AfterBuzz TV whenever they would do recaps of Raw and SmackDown, and then having Women's Wrestling Weekly, which basically birthed Women's Wrestling Talk. And I would watch that, when I was in college and everything, to sort of keep up when I couldn't keep up.
Mhm.
And so I was just like, okay, well, this seems interesting. Maybe I, should try. And they were looking for hosts, they were looking for writers, just anybody to do, any litany, like a litany of things. And so I sent, and so like all of the magic happens in the DMs all the time. Um,
Yeah.
so I sent in, a lot of my information. They asked me, what my information was, and for some of my content as well. And at the time, I only had audio content because I was just recording my voice.
Mhm.
Like, I only just started doing video interviews just last year when I interviewed Teddy Long, because I had to do video for him. So that's when, they, messaged me back. It was like, okay, we would love to have you. And I was like, okay, yeah, great, cool. So since then, it's of course grown to include so many different women from all over the country, to be a part of Women's Wrestling Talk as writers. You have Katrina from In Cat We Trust, who does
Mhm.
writing and interviewing. You have Nikki Bougie, who does writing a whole lot, like, and then who's a senior writer, I believe, and then you have Dreon Santana, who is our editor in chief, who writes amazing stuff as
She's
well.
family.
Like I love them. Like, they're all so amazing, and I love all of their talents and stuff, and I love hosting with them as well. And then it's like they write for the website, and then whenever there's like a pay-per-view, or whenever there's an after show after, like say a Raw or a SmackDown or AEW Rampage or AEW wait,
Dynamite.
Dynamite. There we go, Dynamite. It's
Look,
they have
I've
they
been
have
on the
so
stick.
many shows.
They all look the same.
Yeah, or
I need
AEW
different
Dynamite.
colors. I need
Yes.
one to be orange. I need one to be purple. I need one to be green. They all look the same.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's like you have all of us, collectively working together to help grow this brand.
Mhm.
And even whenever there is a pay-per-view where they need media and stuff like that, you have the opportunity to do that. Cause it's like with TK, she's been in media for years. And Emily May, she's been in media for years. So it feels like you're almost in a master class of,
Mhm.
greats in media when you're learning from them. And I feel like I just learned so much from them all the time. And it's so funny. I was thinking about going back to school for journalism,
Mhm.
for a master's. But then it's just like ever since I hooked up with them, I feel like I'm getting an education regardless.
Yeah,
So it's
experience is
just
the
like,
best teacher.
yes, so it's just like being able to have that opportunity and then be with them for NWA weekend and doing those types of interviews, with a microphone for the first time, with the likes of Mickey James and Renee Michelle and Awesome Kong. Just doing that, like that was like the best experience ever. And I'm so grateful to them for wanting me to even be a part of it. So
Yeah.
it was absolutely fantastic and I love it. I love it so much.
It's always great to see when women support women. because like when that happens, it's untouchable, undefeated, especially in the wrestling business. Because it's we in 2020 was the speaking out movement, and
Mhm.
it was so unfortunate that so many women went through that. But I was so happy to see so many people get exposed, to hopefully prevent these things from occurring again. So when you see women in whether it's in the ring, outside the ring, or in the media side, all coming together to create something because, you know, we all love this thing called wrestling. That's why we
Right.
all here. That's why we talk about it. That's why we get on the internet and voice our pleasures and displeasures. But we all should be able to enjoy it equally as well. So, it's a great thing.
Yeah, it is a great thing. I feel like at Women's Wrestling Talk, and even with the Belladonna Division being an all-female promotion, it's
Mhm.
like I love Women's Wrestling Talk the most because it's like we're like a female we're like the female Avengers of women in wrestling media. I love
Mm,
it. And then with the Belladonna Division, since it's ran by two women, and then since it's an all-female promotion, it's like to be back there in that locker room, it feels so safe.
mhm.
Like safety is so important when you're a woman and you're just looking to grow in the business and do more and show how great you are, and it's important, and you feel like you're able to flourish when you're safe.
Yeah,
And the speaking out movement definitely shed light on that, and it definitely shed light on the places that's making women feel safe and also men feel safe because men go through that too. So it's just like as long as everyone is safe, then you're going to always feel okay to thrive and grow and show who you are. So that's very important.
absolutely, absolutely. So, before we get out of here, what you got coming up? I know you said the show's coming out this week, so that's one thing everybody can look forward to. Anything else you got going on?
Well, something else that I have going on is the fact that I'm going to be at Camicon. I don't think it's Camicon, it's Comic-Con. It's an
Okay.
anime convention. I'm gonna have a fan table there. The Hardy Wrestling Podcast will have a fan table there, and we can get together and talk about all the things that anime and wrestling might have in common. And there's also going to be a new era, I believe it's called New Era South Wrestling. They're going to be having a wrestling show there as well, and that's going to be in Birmingham at the Birmingham Jefferson Convention Complex, aka the BJCC. For those who are from Alabama, please come out and check me out there at that fan table. And the fourth season of the Hardy Wrestling Podcast is starting this week with a new episode. I'm going to talk about everything that's been going on with me, everything that's been going on with wrestling news and gossip, because there's a lot. There's always a lot. And I'm going to be recapping, all the shows this week and everything, Raw, SmackDown, AEW, and stuff like that. Um, and yeah, just continue to just follow me on social media and just check me out because I'm everywhere. I'm also with Women's Wrestling Talk. I also do an after show with Women's Wrestling Talk for SmackDown and Rampage with Santana. Please check that out as well. And yeah, just know if I'm doing anything, I'm gonna post about it and you gonna see it. So that's just everything I have going on. So yeah, that's pretty much it.
And for those who watch, maybe listening on the pod, not watching on YouTube, make sure you follow her. Excuse me, follow her at Queen Steph Hardy.
Yes, please do, and follow the Hardy Wrestling Podcast, or like I like to call it on all of my videos, the Hardy Wrestling Podcast, on social media at Hardy Wrestling Podcast and on Twitter at Hardy Wrestle Pod. And you can also follow me on YouTube. I have a YouTube channel with all my interviews up via video and stuff like that. So, and also if you know people, if you know talent, who want to be on a show, I'm more than welcome. You are more than welcome to come on my show. Please do. It's a
Uh,
chill atmosphere. It's a positive atmosphere. There's no attacking on my show, so just please just come on. Like the door is open.
Y'all heard what she said. The doors are open and stuff. I appreciate you coming on. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
No problem. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's it for this week's episode of Wrestling for the Culture. For more episodes or more content from the Wrestling Realm Network, hit the subscribe button down low. Make sure you turn on the bell for notifications. Till the next time, too sweet.